So this is imperialism number 3, and with countries taking over other countries and trying to take over things, you are probably going to go into a war with somebody. Now, typically, we've seen countries who are getting taken over. They don't like that, and so they will rise up and revolt against that country. But in some cases, so we'll look at that. And then in some cases, you have competing nations, imperialistic nations, fighting against each other. And that's what we're going to look at here is you have the Spanish Empire and you have the United States. And so what's going to happen is Spain and the United States are going to fight over some areas and stuff. So what we're going to look at first is just kind of review these ideas, and hopefully we can keep that in mind as we're looking at the Spanish-American War. It was very short, but we get a lot of stuff as a result of it. So again, we got political reasons, political and military rivalry with other imperialist powers, and then there's also the construction of a modern naval fleet. If you remember what Afro-T Mahon said, you need to control the seas, and if you don't have a good modern naval fleet, that's not going to work. Again, this is one of the reasons we built the Panama Canal, so that our Navy could travel faster, and some of you should recall that. Another is economic reasons, foreign trade. You want to lower your unemployment rate. We were in an economic depression. For those of you that remember it was in 1893, the Panic of 1893, sorry. And then you have competition among industrialized nations, so you got those factors going into it. And then you have the cultural. Basically, if you guys remember social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, there's also the belief in the Anglo-Saxon superiority, so that's those people from Northwest Europe. They believe they're superior to everybody. And then there's also the idea that we want to spread Christianity. So we got all those things going to combine together and mix together to cause what is known as the Spanish-American War. So you have all these events here that lead to another Treaty of Paris. We talked about the Treaty of Paris of 1763 that ended the French and Indian War, the Treaty of Paris of 1783 that ended the American Revolution, and now we have the Treaty of Paris of 1798. It was signed in August of, 1898, my bad. In 1898 it was signed in August, and then it was ratified the following year in 1899. All right, so we have these different things happening. We're going to go through all of these. It's going to take probably 2, maybe 3 videos. We'll see, but we're going to get through the Spanish-American War here. This is a big part of what we need to cover. All right, so this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the Philippines. We're over here. This is the United States, people. Normally we don't see the United States in the middle of the map, but in this case we do because we're America and everything revolves around us. So to our west, we have the Philippines and Guam. This here's China. For those of you that don't know, that is China. There's Japan. Just below us, that's Cuba right there. And here is Puerto Rico. This is part of the Spanish Empire, for those of you that don't know. It used to be a lot bigger if you go back in history. All right? 90 miles between us and Cuba. We're like, hey, you're really close to us. So this is what we did. In 1854, America goes, hey, hey, Spain, can we buy Cuba from you? And Spain basically said, heck no. They said, we would rather see it sink into the ocean. You guys probably have, most of you probably have siblings who ask you for things, and you come back with some snarky remark. This was the snarky remark back in the day. Like you would rather see something like burn or die or disappear completely rather than letting that person use it. And that's the way Spain felt about us. So what would happen is Cuba actually revolts against Spain and the slavery that was going on. That's going to be abolished in 1886. So we've talked about Cuba and its revolutions and its connections and those types of things. We've talked about that in the past. So what's going to happen is the United States is going to see its little way in. And again, this is the late 1800s. We start investing in sugarcane plantations in Cuba. Hey, I guess you guys didn't know, that's what sugarcane looks like. It's a big stick, all right? And from that you get sugar. So This is what we call Cuba's second war for independence, and America was kind of split at this time. We wanted Cuba to be free, but also we had investments in Cuba, so if it was free, we would lose all of our investments in those sugarcane plantations. So what you get is you get this guy that his name's Jose Marti, and he is actually going to lead the Cuban Revolution. He's a poet and a journalist, and he is exiled in New York. That means he's in New York leading a revolution in Cuba. All right, so he leads revolutionist ideas, and he starts the revolt against the Spanish, which control Cuba. And again, remember, we're looking at the causes of the Spanish-American War, and one of those is going to be our involvement in Spain losing control of Cuba. Now, this is what Marti does, and it's kind of interesting. He destroys American sugarcane plantations to help the rebel cause. His hope is that America will get involved if they're losing money because they want to protect their investments. So instead of protecting the sugarcane that the Americans have invested in and them feeling relaxed and good, like, our stuff's nothing's happening to it, he actually goes and has them burn it down so that the Americans are like, whoa, we can't have anything happening to our stuff, so America's going to get involved. All right? But there's a little bit of backstory to this. Cuba has actually rebelled for the third time in 4 decades. So it's been about 38, 39 years, and Cuba is now rebelling against Spain for the third time. And Spain's basically had enough. It's kind of like when you guys do something bad against your parents, and your parents are like, I've had enough, and then they spank your butt, or they take your phone away, or they do something because they've just had enough. Well, Spain having enough was what they were going to do is they were going to send this guy whose nickname was the Butcher. They're going to send him into Cuba. His name was Valerino? Yeah, I don't know. I just call him Butcher Weiler. Sorry, that's my bad for not being able to pronounce that first name. I'm sure some of you can pronounce it better than me that are in Spanish. Gosca Profe Barrett. I don't know if I even said that right. All right, so this is Butcher Weiler right here. He was the general that was sent from Spain to restore order in Cuba through a strong military presence. So he was basically there to scare everybody into doing what he wanted them to do, so that they would stop rebelling. So what he does, he sends about 300,000 Cubans. That's 1/3 of their population to concentration camps, where many are going to die of starvation and disease. His reason for doing that, if you're in a concentration camp, you can't give aid to the rebels. A lot of other countries get really upset with Spain for doing this, and they let Spain know about it. So Spain calls this guy back to Spain and tries to get him to stop doing what they're doing. If you guys look here, these are some people there that are hanging. My guess, this would be people that are rebels. This is a guy from a concentration camp, and here are some of the dead bodies from the concentration camps. This is Jose Marti with, this is a propaganda photo trying to get Americans and other countries to take part in the rebel cause. All right, he's using sympathy here. He's trying to get people to sympathize for his cause. All right, so America's stance on the revolution. Many were neutral. Some wanted to help Cuba. Others wanted their investment saved, so that was the sugarcane. And what it came down to was what was going to sway the vote. All right, and if you think about in American society and in the world today, what is going to happen, and who do you guys think, and we'll get into this in the next video, what's going to happen to get people to sway their opinions? All right, we'll talk about that in the next video.